Today's episode of The Jai Dave Show is brought to you by the Life Force Academy. Life Force Academy, incredible way to have a great home yoga practice, a great home meditation practice. Take care of your body, take care of your mind, stay elevated, lifted spirits, especially during this time. As a listener of the podcast, you can start your 14-day trial in the Life Force Academy for just $1. Check it out. lifeforce.yoga is the URL. Just type that into your browser, lifeforce.yoga, to begin your 14-day trial in the Life Force Academy. Today's episode of the podcast is also brought to you by the incredible new Simrit album, live in Los Angeles, recorded just a few months ago in November at the historic Wilshire Ebel Theater in LA. Incredible show. I was there that night, and the album is incredible. This recording of that show, I think it's the best Simrit album yet. Highly recommend it. Go wherever you listen to your music, Spotify, Apple Music, Simrit, S-I-M-R-I-T. The new Simrit album, you're hearing the opening moments of it right now. Simrit live in Los Angeles, wherever you get your music. Thanks for listening, everyone. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jai Dave. We've got a cool episode for you today. This was an episode that we recorded a little while ago, just before the whole coronavirus pandemic happened and turned the world upside down. So it's a little delayed coming out, but it's actually perfect timing. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. You know, most all of us, we hear quite frequently now about plant-based, even in mainstream America, mainstream world. We're hearing and plant-based is becoming more and more popular, plant-based foods, which is a beautiful thing, and I'm so happy that trend is starting to happen, because it very much needs to happen for more reasons than one, and we'll talk a little bit about that with our guest today in the podcast. So when we talk about and think about plant-based food, and I do like that phrasing, plant-based. I like it more than veganism, for instance. I think it's such an important movement in the world right now. And I'm happy that some of the stigma around vegetarian food, plant-based food, is falling away. More and more people are starting to realize, how wonderful it is and how great plant-based cuisine can be. And in this episode, you're going to meet a couple of stewards of the plant-based food movement, and I think you're going to find their story to be really inspiring. This is a conversation today with Phil and Danea Horn, who are the founders and owners of the Burger Patch in Sacramento, California. Officially my favorite plant-based restaurant in the Northern California area, but it's like a fast food joint. It's a high-quality fast food joint. One of the things I love about the Burger Patch, and you'll hear us talk about this, is when you walk in, they're not pushing anything on you. It's not pretentious at all. You really have to look closely to see that you're in a restaurant that only serves plant-based foods. There's no proselytizing of it, for instance, of vegan food and that kind of thing. It's very welcoming, very warm, and most importantly, the food is really good. So and it's fast food, it's burgers and fries and shakes, and so relative to that genre of cuisine, it's good quality, healthy burgers, fries, and shakes. And so when you want something fun, and really I just love what they do, and I love their story. We were introduced to them by a couple of good friends of ours, and the first really encounter we had with the Burger Patch was actually in the Sacramento Kings NBA team's arena at games when we would go. And if you're a vegetarian or eat a plant-based diet and you've ever been to a professional sports game, you know that it's not easy to find good food that you would want to eat. And at Sacramento, they've got the elite. They've got the Burger Patch in there. And before their restaurant opened, Simrit and I and our son City Amrit, we'd always look forward to going to get some burgers at the Burger Patch and watch the game. And it was really cool to experience that. And what was really cool is there'd be a big line. And I always got the sense that a lot of people didn't even realize they were eating plant-based food. And it tastes so good that I don't think anyone cares. You know, it's just delicious, and you can feel, you know, that this is quality. Anyhow, I could go on and on about that, but I think you're gonna really love listening to their story and how it's so much more. This story is about so much more than a restaurant. Obviously, it's about a health crisis that Danea went through, and I won't spoil it. But they're very inspiring people. Phil was actually, he worked for quite some time in the front office of the Sacramento Kings, hence why the Burger Patch is inside of there. And Danea does, she's also an author and does great work educating people on specific health issues. And now in this plant-based revolution, I think they're really at the forefront. And I would not be surprised if this Burger Patch brand grows and grows and grows. We went to the opening day, which is about a year ago. So this week is the 1-year anniversary. They opened May the 4th, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. And 1 year later, here we are. So it's actually quite timely that we're releasing this episode now. And I'm happy to introduce you to them, the plant-based food revolution with Phil and Danea Horn. Enjoy the episode, everyone.
The first iteration was actually soup.
Yeah.
We were living in Portland, which lends itself to, wanting soup 10 months out of the year,
Right.
I think. And I was working for the Portland Trailblazers at the time, and I think you were working for Hannah Anderson. And just like she said, kind of, spitballing fun ideas. I was like, hey, what's really missing in this world is a great soup, fast food soup restaurant, grab and go. So we actually started pursuing that. We had some contacts that had some chains of restaurants in the area. We're really good friends and kind of mentors at the time. And I started talking to them about this idea, the soup concept, and I started to actually write a business plan on it.
At this point, is it any kind of soup? You're not into the vegan mindset?
Carnivores and still kind of figuring out, life, early 20s, I guess, at the time, mid 20s. And got that fairly far along, I guess. And then around that time, started to sort of recognize that we wanted to become vegetarian. Danea had left a book in the bathroom.
Yeah, I decided to go. We were having an anniversary dinner.
People hanging on the book in the bathroom right now.
I know, it's coming. We were at an anniversary dinner, and I had this book of interesting questions. And so one of the questions was, could you slaughter an animal? And I thought, there's absolutely no way.
Right.
I have such a heart for the dogs that we had at the time and animals in general. And I just thought, why do I feel like I get to eat something that I wouldn't be willing to take from the earth? And so at that moment, I sort of said, okay, that's it. I'm going to be vegetarian. And you followed in that decision not long after. And then a friend of mine at work had read the book Skinny Bitch and lent it to me, and I happened to leave it in the bathroom, which apparently is a good place for Philip to find reading material.
If you ever want, your significant other to pick up on an idea you have, leave a book or a reference in the bathroom.
So this wasn't a covert operation.
I don't think so.
No, it wasn't at the time. And I think we both read that book and sort of realized that going 100% plant-based was the right thing to do. But like a lot of the people in transition towards incorporating more plant-based into their diet, we were sort of confused about what are the products out there? How do we recreate favorite meals? What would we eat when we're on the go?
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be really hard and challenging.
Yeah. And so we sort of, I guess it just planted a seed in our mind that grew over the next few years.
Yeah. And me in particular, I was at times a 3 burger a day person. I'm not joking.
Really?
Particularly in college, when probably my metabolism was even higher than it is now. And you know, at least a burger a day, at that point in our lives. And most of those burgers were of the fast food variety, you know.
Where did you both grow up?
I grew up in Oregon in a very small town.
I grew up in the San Diego area.
Okay.
And I had a single mother, and you know, as it is pretty typical in those situations, you eat when food can be found and
Sure.
convenient and inexpensive.
Yeah.
So I was a drive-through kid,
Yeah.
who grew up on, you know, pick a chain that you're probably familiar with. So that taste was really familiar to me. So, you know, when we first went vegetarian, you know, the idea of giving that up was probably the biggest, like, okay, how are we going to deal with this? I'm so used to that nostalgia and that flavor and texture. But we figured it out. You know, we started to recreate things. I'm fortunate because Danea is incredibly skilled in the kitchen, and she wasn't willing to make this change unless she could recreate all of her nostalgic favorites.
Yeah, so over those few years, I think we were sort of dabbling in being vegan, and then we moved to the Sacramento area, and I had chronic kidney disease at the time, and my doctors had sort of confirmed that going to a low protein diet, and particularly a low animal protein diet, is a really good thing to do to preserve kidney function. And I met with one of my new doctors here in Sacramento, and she said, well, if you're avoiding meat because you're not wanting to eat animal protein, why are you still eating eggs and cheese and all of these other things? And she said, I think it would be a really smart thing for you to do if you can move that direction for the majority of your meals. And that was sort of my kick in the pants. Okay, this isn't just a good thing for me to do for all of my values, valuing health and valuing the environment and animals and all of these other things. And then, as Philip said, I was unwilling to only eat salads and quinoa and brown rice. So I needed to recreate Thanksgiving the way that it tasted when I was 10 years old. And we needed taco night and enchiladas. And as Philip said, his like fast food favorites. And so I got in the kitchen and sort of started recreating all of our favorite meals. And once we did that, we realized, oh, this isn't hard. Like, this is actually pretty easy.
And then sort of backing up from that. So, you know, we had the soup idea and that business plan was in development, and we were making this transition. And quickly I started to realize, like, I can't do what I thought I was going to do with this soup restaurant, you know, the chicken soup and all that. Like, I don't know how to figure this out now. And that conflict was new for me. And sort of had to kind of set that idea aside for a little while. It quickly started transitioning, though, as we moved into the vegetarian lifestyle of like, wow, it's hard to find this convenient, nostalgic kind of meal that we are so used to, especially with busy work schedules and on the go. And I was traveling, and I started to really miss that. So then now comes the idea of, wow, maybe it's not a soup restaurant that we should do, but maybe it's this, you know, vegetarian, vegan, you know, meatless, fast food kind of concept. And this was, I don't know, 12 years ago or something at the time, 10 years ago maybe. At the time, you know, the abundance of options that are now currently available in the supermarket or wherever didn't exist. So it was, you know, we think we can do all of this, but we're really missing the core element, which is that burger. And, you know, we were eating black bean burgers and quinoa burgers and, you know, portobello burgers or whatever.
I know.
None of them hit the spot
No way.
for me. You know, and so I was always kind of like arm's length from the concept. Was, you know, I had this idea of the business plan, and we would talk about it all the time. And, you know, I talked to business partners and even like shared this idea with them 7-8 years ago, you know, in random drives, you know, to the Bay Area. I'd say, hey, I've got this idea. And it was really early before this movement really kicked into high gear where it is now. And we were kind of waiting really for somebody or for a movement to bring some core products along that could help us take this idea into a place that we thought it could hit the mainstream. What we didn't want to do was open a sort of traditional vegan restaurant, you know, which was a traditional kind of cafe with, you know, wraps and salads. And those are places we ate at, but that's not the void. It didn't inspire us. That's not the void that we thought needed to be filled.
Right.
So we were really looking for the fast food replication. And, you know, fast forward then to, I guess, 3 years ago, maybe 2016, 17, Impossible Burger, Beyond Burger started to, you know, kind of make waves. And I had always followed this stuff really closely. So before a lot of people knew about it, we were on top of it. We were watching this kind of stuff and really intrigued by it. The initial rollout was actually impossible. Started to do these sort of pop-up events or serving in just a couple of really high-end restaurants around the country. I think 2 or 3 restaurants at their early stages, one in New York, one in San Francisco, one in LA, really meat-heavy restaurants. And I think that was part of their marketing strategy. So we were like, oh, this is so amazing. Like, we got to go try this. So we actually drove to San Francisco. You had to buy a ticket.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they would only serve like, I don't know, 60 of them a night or something. So we had to go. You had to get in line and get a ticket at like 5 o'clock,
Great
and then come back.
Plan,
And then come back at like 7 or 8 o'clock for your number to be called. And so we did that, and I remember tasting it, and I thought, okay, like this is really close. And this was the Impossible Burger. This is really close. And that really started to make me think like this is going to happen, and I want to maybe revisit this business plan and really get this in high gear. And came across a couple of friends, clients actually, when I worked at the Sacramento Kings. We were on a trip to LA, and I started telling them about this idea I've had for 6-7 years, and they looked me straight in the eye and said, "Do it, and we're in. Like, we want to invest in that idea." I was like, "Really?" They're like, "We're dead serious." I was like, "Okay," and then.
But neither of us have ever opened a restaurant.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask.
At the time, we thought
you seem like you did a really good job.
we can open for a day. Like, that was all we could commit to. Is like we can figure out how to run a restaurant for one day. So we decided to do a pop up. We knew of a
Wait, what does that mean? We know how to open a restaurant for one day.
For like, we could, instead of hiring staff and figuring out how to get everything going day after day, like, we can do it once.
Yeah.
So we knew of a restaurant that was open for lease, and so we contacted them and said, "Hey, can we rent this from you for a day to do a pop-up?" And so we started developing. Now that we had some capital investment and this momentum behind us, the more people we told about Burger Patch, it was as if we just couldn't not do it. There was such a groundswell of positive energy and support to like have this thing.
And we didn't have it fully developed yet. So meanwhile, this energy was growing, and everybody's like, "That's going to be amazing." We're like, "Yeah, it is." So we've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
So the Beyond Burger then was also ramping up in production and had a similar marketing strategy where it was only available in select markets and and only at Whole Foods or maybe at one restaurant, nothing in the Sacramento area. So we contacted them and said, "Hey, we have this idea. Here's what we want to do." And they were kind enough to send us samples from their production facility. And we tasted them. We're like, "This is it. This is the core of what we've been waiting for." We had all the other ideas, the sauces, the shakes, like all that kind of in development. And Danea had done versions of those things over the years. But it was that core burger that we had been waiting for, with that sort of satiation, that nostalgia that we remembered. So we sampled it. We're doing all this kind of at the same time. We're thinking, okay, we're going to do this pop-up. I'm writing a business plan. We're starting to talk to potential investors. And we needed to recruit a chef to help us kind of bring the pop-up idea to fruition.
To run the kitchen.
To run the kitchen, bring in a staff of people who actually knew how to do this, because I've worked in a kitchen before, but it had been a long time ago, and clearly having a professional chef like ups our game. So I started to ask around, and we found a wonderful man by the name of Scott Ostrander, who worked in some really wonderful restaurants in Sacramento, and was kind of getting his feet wet with some restaurant consulting, and the timing was right for him to kind of join us in this project and help us really take some of our recipes over the top and really talk through like the logistics of the kitchen and the layout and all the things that we thought, oh, we'll figure that out. But he was like, no, like, let's go over this. And started sampling it for some people that had shown some interest in investing or being part of this journey with us, and it all just kind of came together. And meanwhile, I'm holding down a very, very full-time job with the Sacramento Kings.
Right.
Danea's, at the time,
in my PhD
transitioning
program.
from master's to getting her PhD at UC Davis. And
what's your PhD?
Agriculture and resource economics, and I specialize in all my research is in health economics. Yeah.
Wow. So you're working. So first you worked with the Blazers, huh?
I worked with the Blazers in Portland for about 4 years. Yeah.
What was your job there?
Similar to what it ended up being with the Kings, just sort of a earlier stage of that job. I was our director of our group ticket sales.
Well, no, you have to back up if we're going to talk about your career.
Yeah, let's back up.
Yeah, well, we've both been through a variety of careers. I think we've always had this sort of bug of like, let's try something else, you know. And
well, so in college,
she tells it better than I do.
Yeah, let's hear it, Danea.
You majored in sports administration. You would always wanted to work in sports.
An athlete as a kid?
An inspiring athlete as a kid. Yeah, I was always the kid who loved it, but never had the talent to dunk from the free throw line.
I think it just
I completely understand.
Provided so much for you growing up that you always wanted to work in sports. And then once you graduated, even though that's sort of what your aim was, you realized that everybody wants to work in sports. And so to get in the door, you're sort of starting at minimum wage and doing what you need to do, and you could make a better living doing other things. And so you sort of left that dream on the sidelines for a while.
I started to sell other things. I was always good at sales and really liked interacting with people and helping them, solve some problem or need that they had in their life or their business. So I was the director of sales and marketing for a small software company in Southern California. I transitioned from that to sell consulting services. I sold shipping services for a while, which took us across the country to Colorado for a couple of years. Then I sold mortgages. I sold consulting services, just all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm. And by the time you got to mortgages, you had what I called the Mope.
Yeah.
There's just this like heaviness of like not, and really what we're learning now is it's all about being in alignment with your values.
Right.
And he really valued his passion for sports, and his career just wasn't in alignment with that at the time. And so I said, find a job in sports anywhere in the country and we'll go. And we were living in Southern California at the time. And fortunately, he applied. The Blazers had an opening. He got that job, but you went in at minimum wage.
Oh, no kidding.
Like bottom of the barrel, cold call, make 100 phone calls a day. After 2 weeks starting, Phil called me and said, I can't do it. Like, I don't know what I did. Like, to go from being as successful in sales as I was in these past jobs to now being sort of back entry level.
Well, we risked a lot. I'm making this call from Portland because she's still down in Southern California because we owned a house.
Were you making good money
Making good money, yeah.
Previously
she was making better money than me in Southern California, and I was doing fine. But
now your minimum
left
wage
and asked her to give up a really well-paying job also in Southern California at the time. And we had this house, and we were coming right into what was going to be the real estate financial crisis of 2008. Yeah. So timing wasn't great. Fortunately, we were able to like sell the house. Anyway, she was down in Southern California for, I don't know, 6 weeks or something.
It was like 3 months.
3 months. And I was up in Portland, like trying to get this whole thing started, finding a house to rent that she had never seen. So I was feeling a lot of responsibility of,
and you're making minimum wage, but working for the Blazers. Let me ask you this real quick, as we go along with this story. What was it, at least at that time, maybe still currently, about sports that aligned with your values? What was it? Clearly, it's not about. There's something. What is it?
Yeah. And it is a good mirror still to what we're doing today. I think for me, sports was always about the feeling that it created in a community, and as me as an only child with a single mother who was probably constantly in search of a role model. Particularly a male role model for me growing up. The athletes that I looked up to were that for me. They were successful. They were at peak performance, the pinnacle of whatever it was they were doing.
Who were your athlete heroes growing up?
Who were they?
Yeah.
Well, growing up in Portland, the Trailblazers were kind of my team. So I looked up to Clyde Drexler, who was a big player at the time. The whole team, that team was...
I was a Bad Boys fan. I hated y'all.
Oh, yeah. We lost to you in the 89-90.
So that's
finals,
your era. So it was post-Bill Walton years.
Post-Bill Walton, yeah. Jerome Kersey, Kevin Duckworth, Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, Buck Williams, Cliff Robinson. Like, those were my teams. Rick Adelman was actually the coach.
Yeah, right. I remember.
Cool. And I was a 49er fan, the Steve Youngs and Jerry Rices of the world. Like those were my heroes. And they gave me the motivation to want to be something great. And what I also saw in sports was that it had the ability to bring people together in times of difficulty, to bring unity and triumph for a collective goal, which I really loved. I always just loved the idea of being part of a team, and working, with the person on my left or my right for the same thing. I think I just liked having that support and that feeling of togetherness.
Yeah, sports are cool like that, aren't they?
They are. It's funny. We were just talking the other day. We were watching the Super Bowl, and I said, I'm done with sports. I'm a 49er fan. I said, I don't know why I need to watch this. This is just painful. Every time it's painful, I watch this. I was like, it doesn't even matter.
Paced the whole game.
Yeah, it's like sports.
Couldn't even sit
Sports
down.
are silly. They don't even matter. It's just all entertainment and make believe. Like, this isn't real life. I don't know why I put so much effort and energy into this. And then 2 hours later, like, I come out of my funk and I remember, like, yeah, but like, I love it. I love the togetherness and the emotion, and it's the sadness that
getting depressed after a loss
makes the greatness so fun.
Yeah, it's funny. I think like I can relate so much because I'm this yogi meditating all the time, but then like there's certain things, especially because we've been talking a lot about nostalgia in food, nostalgia in sports. So I grew up, down the road from Clemson University in South Carolina. So we weren't very good my whole lifetime until last several years.
Right.
And when they won their first national championship first recent one against Alabama a few years ago, an incredible game. It was one of the, like, my brother-in-law, he's a real Southerner. He said, I asked him, I was like, what was that like for you? And he's a big Clemson fan. And he was like, this is one of the proudest moments of my life. And meanwhile, my sister's standing right there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, really? The proudest moment of your life? But it was so ecstatic.
Yeah.
Like, and then fast forward to like this year. Yeah. And like, I teach on Monday night, so I had to DVR the game. Yeah. But I'm telling my wife, I was like, all right, there's a chance that I might be depressed for a little bit tonight. She knows I'm just mostly playing around, but also being true. Like, there's going to be like an hour, but
isn't it so funny? Like, you have no control over it.
I know.
Like, that's the part I was talking about after the Super Bowl. I was just like, why am I so upset? I have no control over this, yet it's like tearing me apart.
Well, you can't go up if you're not willing to go down.
That's also what I said. Yeah.
Here's my philosophy on this sports. Like, it's a good thing. Like, it's actually not important ultimately.
Right.
But it's one of the things we get joy out of in life. So it's actually a nice, like, I don't want to go up and down like that, like in my marriage, for instance, or in my work, or in like the things that rely on my emotional intelligence. For sports, it's like it's there's no stakes.
Well, so here's the challenge when you work in sports.
Right, that's a different
changes.
thing.
That changes, and that's so I moved into this, like, I get to work in my passion, and I got this job.
It was watching a 9-year-old boy get to go to work every day.
Yeah, I literally wrote a letter that my mom found when I don't know 11, 12 years old that said, someday I'm going to work for the Portland Trailblazers. And then I get this job with the Trailblazers. She pulls this letter out and she's like, you wrote this to me. I'm like, oh my God, like, that's crazy. So I became not now just invested as a fan, but as a leader, as somebody who's depending on income from what's happening on the court now. And now I had this little sense of like, maybe I do have a little bit of control. Maybe it is based on how many people we put in the stands, or just the kind of culture and energy we create as a leadership team around this organization and the city. And like, that does have some influence over how the players play that any given night. So like I was fully bought in. So those highs and lows that I had as a fan went to a whole different level as somebody in a leadership position in those organizations.
Wow. So because at first you were minimum wage, but you weren't.
So that didn't last long. When you have enough passion, I think it was about 2 years, and Philip quickly became the leader of the team that he had started on. And
what do you think, Danea, was about Phil that, like, what is the quality that like took him from so quick?
He is extremely driven, and he, more than anybody I know, believes in people and believes in making the team great. And so I think that he's willing to forego his own personal comfort, personal time off, life balance, whatever it is, in order to make the team great, in order to make his coworkers great. And I think that's quickly recognized by any organization, that somebody that sees the potential and is willing to devote themselves to that. There's just nothing to prevent that success. Like, I don't think it could have gone any other way than it went, given that you saw the opportunity there and you just decided to seize on it.
Yeah, and purpose and skill like align with each other.
Yeah, which is rare, I think, and I think we feel fortunate to sort of have a second shot at that too. You know, when I decided to walk away from sports, which was not an easy decision, but it was time.
So I didn't even know. So you're not with the Kings anymore?
No, I left. So you know, it's what month are we in right now? It's February right now. I left in July. Very, very deliberately. You know.
How did you go from Portland to Sacramento?
So in Portland, I had kind of moved up to, like she said, manage the team that I was on, and some of this sort of circumstantial when there's only 30 NBA teams, and I really want to stay in the NBA. So you have to kind of, if there's an opportunity, sometimes you have to go after it if that's the next step in your career.
Sure, yeah.
And there was an opportunity in Sacramento. They were hiring for a vice president of sales, and I was probably a little early on my attempt at that. But at the time, the Kings were not in great shape. Their building was generally empty. There was talk of relocation to another city. It wasn't a good time to take a job like that.
Right.
So I think they were willing to take a chance on somebody who maybe didn't have as much experience behind them. And I had done really well in my discipline, but I hadn't taken on the breadth of what they were hiring for. I managed a team of 8 or 10 people in Portland. This was going to turn into managing a team of 50, 60 people, and a much larger sort of revenue and responsibility.
Wow.
So anyway, they took a chance on me, and boy, walked into a firestorm of drama and controversy and challenge with the situation the Kings were in at the time, and so thankful for what I learned in that experience.
I bet. Yeah. I'll resist my urge for going deep into the details of that as a basketball fan and bore the majority of my audience that probably is not.
There's a lot of life lessons to be learned in that experience. I can tell you that.
I'm sure.
Talking about the ups and the downs and the stresses, and where to focus your energy. I think the one thing I would say about that summarizes it for me was we learned a lot about what we can control and how to focus on that, and how to just emit real, genuine, positive energy that a lot of times was a little bit of fake it till we believed it ourselves.
Right.
Put it out there enough.
What was the culture that you were coming into at the time? Was it something that it was rough?
It was rough. Yeah. I mean, again, the team hadn't won in a long time. We hadn't had a lot of great sales success when I had arrived. There were these, sort of early rumblings about relocating the team.
I remember.
Not an ideal situation to take over. I really like the idea of either a reclamation project or building something from the ground up was really appealing to me, and that sort of offered some of that.
Yeah.
And I knew what I did know about the Kings and what I loved was something similar to we had in Portland, which was the fan base.
Small market.
Small market.
That's what the city has, is that team.
That's right. Passionate fan base, believed in their city, believed in hard work. And I knew that all of those things were the right formula to turn this into something great.
Right, because a few years before, they were at the
top of the game.
Right. Yeah. That's cool. So what happened?
So, very, very long story short,
the cliff notes.
The team sort of thwarted the relocation effort from originally Anaheim, then to Seattle, and picked 5 other cities that were rumored in between.
Vegas or something.
Yeah, Vegas. Yeah, I think Kansas City, Virginia Beach. Seemed like we were looking on the map of like, well, where might we have to move here? And pretty much any city was fair game at the time. So we had lost a lot of our staff during that time. I think my staff, which was around 40 at one point, got down to about 13 because we started telling people we don't know how this is going to end up. Like I very clearly told them I'm in this for the long haul and I'm going to see this through, and I think it's going to turn out and be great. But if this is uncomfortable for you, we'll help you find other jobs in sports or wherever you want to do. So a lot of people took us up on that. So we lost a lot of staff. Then the team was saved. It was an epic, Hollywood style story, at the 11th hour, saving the team before it relocated to Seattle. All the energy just flooded back into the market in a positive way. And we had worked really hard a year or two before that to maintain relationships with people so that if things went our way, that was an easy call to make. Is that when the
ownership changed? Was that?
And the ownership changed, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so the Maloofs were the previous owners.
Kevin Johnson's helped save
Kevin Johnson, the mayor of Sacramento at the time, along with the help of current mayor Darrell Steinberg, who was in the state senate. Everybody,
I remember,
really, really pushed to keep this team in Sacramento. And the NBA. I have unending respect and gratitude to the now late commissioner, David Stern, who played an enormous role in helping set up the table, I think, for Sacramento to keep its team, and just thankful for all of those efforts and the NBA's efforts to do what it could to if there was a way the team could stay in Sacramento, make it happen, and their support. Met a ton of really great people. Was able to then rehire, and we hired, I think, 100 people or 80 to 100 people quickly.
Wow.
Regrew the team.
Built a beautiful arena.
Built a beautiful new arena in downtown Sacramento, which, is fun to sort of forever have that, stadium as a stamp or icon to the time that we gave to the Kings.
Right.
And that all of that
progressive arena too, right?
Progressive arena,
solar powered.
Yeah, solar powered, very environmentally friendly. It's the first platinum LEED certified arena in the world.
Beautiful inside, nice
built
layout
with a lot of purpose.
I just went to the Chase Center for the first time over New Year's for the Dead, and it was nice too. But I wasn't impressed as I was with Sacramento.
Just, the location, I think the story of how it got built, just. It will forever be very unique, I think. And we sort of got to a point, 2 or 3 years into that, where we felt, okay, that was a big mountain to climb. And sometimes when you climb those mountains and you've achieved some kind of goal, you look back and you're like, I don't know if I can replicate that.
Right.
That energy or that feeling. And the Kings had really developed a great, culture as a place to work. And we hired and trained some really wonderful people, and I just started feeling like, okay, maybe my work here is done right now. Maybe this chapter is coming to an end. And, back to what we started talking about, the business plan and the restaurant pop-up, all that started happening, was really successful. And, one thing led to another. We talked and decided, okay, we're going to go all in on this. And I went to the Kings and said, hey guys, I'm bawling as I'm telling them this, but I need to step away. Like this, we opened our brick and mortar restaurant in May, and I had taken I'd taken a week of vacation to do that. It was so busy. I had to go back to the Kings and say, hey, I need to use another week of vacation to get through this next week. And about halfway through that, I just said, this isn't going to stop. I think I need to be there. I need to be there full time, not only for the success of this restaurant, but because we have something here, and it'd be a missed opportunity not to see where this would go if we give full energy into it. So Danea and I made that decision, and I went to the Kings and said, I think I need to transition out. So we came up with a plan for the next couple months to push the things that I was doing into some very, very incredibly capable hands of people that were already there. And in July, I had an epic karaoke party and my send-off, and then I was Burger Patch full time.
Wow. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Just taking a quick break from our conversation to tell you a little bit more about our presenting sponsor, the Life Force Academy. Life Force Academy right now is doing 4 live streams per week. That's in addition to the over 100 of yoga class experiences that you get access to in the Life Force Academy. All the different power practices. Power practice for alleviating nervous energy or fear energy, power practice to have good, deep, restful sleep, to stimulate the immune system, power practice to increase intuition, and on and on. Then you have all the yoga classes, workshops, but then now every week in the Life Force Academy, Monday evenings, Thursday evenings, Wednesday mornings, Tuesday afternoons with Simrit, live stream. So people all over the world simultaneously coming together to do these wonderful practices, yoga practices, meditation practices. What a beautiful way to get lifted, stay elevated, feel great. And then even if you can't attend those live, all of them are on demand after they're concluded, after the class is over. They're available on demand. You can take them whenever you wish. So again, go to lifeforce.yoga. That's your URL. If you go to lifeforce.yoga, as a listener of this podcast, you can begin your 14-day trial in the Life Force Academy for just $1. That's lifeforce.yoga. Just type that into your browser, and you can learn more and start trying the Kundalini Yoga experience in the Life Force Academy. Right back to our conversation. What would your, I always hate when people ask those questions. What would you say to your 15-year-old self? My 15-year-old self would be too dumb to listen to it. But what would you think, like, as a young kid with a dream of working for, like, this NBA team that eating burgers, you quit the NBA team to start a vegetarian burger spot?
I think with all of it, as I look back to my 15-year-old self now, I'd say you can do all of that if you are fortunate enough to find a spouse who supports you and encourages you and pairs the energy well with you to make that happen.
Good answer, man.
Otherwise, you will probably crash and burn.
I agree with that 100%. 100%. Yeah, we're blessed when we have partners that support you in every. That's the thing about, like, relationships like that. It's like, you know, like, when somebody who's, like, seen you at, like, your best, but also your lowest.
She's seen the lowest, which is maybe lower than the best. Yeah.
and then they still. That's when it's, you know, it's real love.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that support steady. Yeah. You know. Yeah. So, like, during all this, so you're going through your health challenges.
Yeah. So when we left Portland, I think I had about 30% kidney function. We got got to Sacramento. No, I must have had less than that because
So
it was less than that.
Both kidneys are challenged?
So I was born with something called bacterial association, which is sort of a constellation of birth disorders that impacts a number of different systems in the body. So my spine, my kidneys, my trachea and esophagus. So I had a lot of surgeries to put things back sort of in working order before I was 2 years old.
I see.
But then I had a long stretch of really great health. But then when I was in high school, I had some anatomical sort of defects in the connection between my kidney so I was born with one kidney as part of that, and then had some defects that were between the connection between my bladder and kidney. And so I started getting a lot of urinary tract infections that were sort of damaging the one kidney that I had. And so we started monitoring that. And I think at the time I kind of thought, okay, I know I have lower kidney function, but I think that can last me, you know, the length. I just need to take good care of my health. But then when we came to Sacramento, I was at about 25% kidney function or something. And my new doctor here said, you know, I think you're about 6 months away from being on the kidney transplant list. And that was just like, what? Like, I'm actually going to need a new, like, it's not just that I'm going to have to keep an eye on this. Like, we're actually going to have to go through this sort of whole process. And we were fortunate at the time that the opportunity with the Sacramento Kings allowed me a little bit of freedom to step back from my work. You know, while Philip was pursuing his passions, I was sort of looking around for what is really lighting me up. I knew that I have a very sort of split side of my mind. I have a very analytical, math-oriented. I majored in math and econ in my undergrad, but then I also have a very sort of introspective, creative, loves to cook in the kitchen, loves to talk philosophy kind of side of my mind. And I think I was ready to sort of explore what I needed to learn about going through these health challenges and maybe where my career would sort of take me. So I took a step back. So as we were dealing with some of this health stuff, I started working on this book that I had the idea to write. And so in sort of the first 5 years that we were here in Sacramento, I did a lot of speaking, and I did a lot of writing, and I went out and interviewed a number of other women that were dealing with chronic health challenges, and sort of what came out of all those conversations was my book, Chronic Resilience. And I sort of came to two ideas. One, that I sort of had to forgive myself for going through the health challenges that I was going through, to realize that I was human and we have to deal with our human bodies and our human selves with compassion and accept the things that we can't control. And then also at the flip side of that coin, get really concrete about what we can control. What can I do about my diet? Oh, I can go plant-based. What can I do about managing my health? I can make sure that I'm on top of medications that I need to take and all these other things.
Were these progressive doctors that were telling you about plant-based, or is this kind of standard?
It was actually my standard primary care doctor. So my very first doctor didn't, I mean, this is a unfortunate thing about our healthcare system. The very first doctor that I had, nephrologist, which is a kidney specialist, when I said, oh, I went vegetarian, he said, oh, that's a great thing. That's actually really good for your kidney. I was like, well, why didn't you tell me that when we met a year ago or 2 years ago?
No kidding.
Well,
right?
and it's funny too. There were nutritionists we met with who did not mention plant-based.
Not even as like a possibility.
And then of course I went and started reading in the academic journals that yes, they've looked at this and it is. Animal protein is hard on your kidneys, and if you can cut back on that, like you can preserve kidney function.
Well, so much of our society in this part of the world, we don't even know how to eat a vegetarian diet. I think that's partly why it doesn't occur to them, because like how would you even do that?
Right.
Whereas like if you're
going to starve.
If you're in India, like most of the continent, they know just how to do it quite well. When I became a vegetarian at 18, just got out of high school.
Yep.
Pasta and cookies are vegetarian.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's essentially my entry into
I can
it.
very easily figure this out. So at the same time that I was writing the book, we were going through the process of getting tested and finding out that Philip was a match for me, that we had the same blood type, and that he would actually be a really good kidney donor for me. And so we got all of that set up. And then the day that my book was released and in Barnes & Noble and on Amazon and all those things, we found out that I was officially in kidney failure and it was time to schedule the transplant surgery.
No kidding. It aligned with your book release? It
aligned on the exact date.
So you had to go back and look at the title, which was called Chronic Resilience.
Yeah,
and be
exactly.
like, okay, like there's a reason for this.
Yeah, so we just have to become resilient over and over again. So we did a little book tour, and then at the end of that, checked ourselves into the hospital.
She says a little book tour, but like we were in 3 or 4 different cities, kind of up and down the West Coast, San Diego, Portland, Seattle. I remember specifically the one in Portland. I mean, she's becoming, white as a ghost. Her energy's incredibly low, and she's having to get up and, speak to people that are there to hear her do readings. And she's like, literally can barely walk in some cases or get up and down stairs because she was starting to lose so much energy, out of breath really quickly. And, she's still traveling around the country to do this book tour. And then I was like, okay, we got to get back.
Flying in airplanes?
Flying in airplanes, yeah. All things that are probably not great as you're about to lose your kidney function. But.
Yeah, so we were, the team that we had that supported the two of us going through that process, it was just the most incredible thing. And I'm so grateful to have a match, to have a willing match who just supported me through that process. And we had our moms come and move in with us for a little more than a month to make sure that we were both healthy and that everything went smooth. And it just could not have gone better, sort of start to finish. And the thing that I was really nervous about was, so when you have a kidney transplant, you have to take immune suppression drugs so that your body doesn't recognize the new organ as a foreign invader. And I just didn't know what it was going to be like to sort of live. You think about all the things that you don't normally think about, touching a grocery cart
How
handle.
long do you have to take those?
For the rest of my life.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. So you take very high doses in the beginning, and then you scale back a little bit, but you never can
stop.
get away from them. And so I didn't know, those drugs tend to have a lot of side effects, and you can get colds very easily, and then they have some bigger potential side effects of, your body can't combat things like cancer and that as readily. But man, I started drinking water. We were 100% vegan by then. And, knock on wood, I think I've had one mild cold in the last
amazing.
6 years.
There you go.
Which is absolutely amazing. So I think it's a wonder kidney paired with the idea that that we do have some impact on the way that our bodies handle the things that they need to go through. And part of that is what we put into our mouths.
Right, and you're using your willpower to change how statistics affect you, essentially. It's not just chance. It's like you're taking it into your control.
And a lot of that's a great point. Like, people would tell us statistics and things like this, and through the process leading up to donating and even after. And it was kind of like, well, that's nice, but like, nobody's got the same really like factors that we do going into this, being plant-based and just the great patient that she is. Like, a lot of the statistics are based on, people didn't take their medication, or they ate really poorly, or they drank a ton, or whatever.
Lifestyle stuff.
Stuff. So it's just like, throw those out. Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, it's going to last as long as it's supposed to last.
That's right.
Yeah. So after healing from the transplant, I sort of sat back and kind of reassessed, okay, what's next for me? And that was going back to school, that I really wanted to take this individual experience I had of going through chronic illness and the transplant, because we think of our experiences as so individual, but you can step back and look at broad patterns that happen in our healthcare system and society. And I became really passionate about furthering my education and my skills and joining academia to do some of the research to sort of help inform what's going on in our healthcare system from an economic standpoint, which, econ is interesting. It's not so much numbers and what's happening in the broad U.S. economy. It's really about what are the decisions that we make, and really analyzing those decisions for what's causing some of the patterns that we're seeing in our healthcare system, what's causing some of the patterns that we're seeing in obesity, in the increase in healthcare spending. And so that's some of the work that I'm doing now. So I went back to school pretty much full time after I healed from that. And I'm in my 4th year of the PhD program. So I'm doing...
After she got a master's.
After I got my master's in econ, I sort of had to re-up my skills. I'd been out of school for so long.
Wow.
And so now I'm so grateful to get to have Burger Patch, where I get to be creative and have this project with my husband, and then also sort of this statistically driven intellectual curiosity that I get to explore every day through my research. So.
Wow. You share kidneys.
we share kidneys.
Yeah. I think it's much happier in her body. It was probably like see ya.
What a story.
She drinks more water than you do.
So the first exposure I had to Burger Patch was at the Kings games.
Right, that's right.
And because we met Steven, your business partner, and he told me about it. I hadn't actually heard about Beyond Burgers or anything at that point.
Okay.
So that was a great excuse to go to a basketball game.
Sure.
And first of all, one of the problems with going to basketball games is finding something that I would consider edible.
Yeah.
And like to go and like get something like really good.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the food is great, first of all. And I know a lot of people have had Beyond Burgers and that kind of stuff, but that's not, it's the way you guys do it. That's what makes
it. I think that, yeah.
I would say that. Yeah. I mean, anyhow, we can talk about the details of the culinary side of it in a moment, but what I was thinking was the branding side of it, in that it's not throwing like vegan in anybody's face. I never even seen the word vegan in your establishment. Is it
Cautious
in there?
about that.
It's not in there.
No.
Yeah, plant. And furthermore, like you would have had to. I don't know what it's. Are you still in the arena?
We are. Yeah.
Great. I haven't gone this season. I need to. I need to go.
Yeah.
I know. I would have had to read the fine print to know that it was even plant-based. It seemed like, which I loved that.
Yeah.
And do you think there's a lot of people that are having the burgers over there or that don't know they're plant-based?
We know there are, because we hear it later. And that was part of the whole concept for us. So this is again back in 2016, I think, when we really started like putting stuff on paper, and we knew the word vegan was scary for people.
Yeah.
It's polarizing.
Yeah. We didn't want to be a preachy brand.
It becomes an ism.
Yeah. And we are not that kind of people. Like, I'd go out to eat with my staff or whatever all the time, and I'd always have to kind of pull the waiter aside and say, hey, like I don't eat dairy, or I'm vegan. I'd have to explain it, and then I'd get into a conversation with my staff. But I was always a little like, I don't want to sound preachy to them. Like they can get whatever they want. I just kind of need to do my thing here. But they'd hear me talk about it, so then I'd have to get into it. But we never wanted to be overtly, pushing our opinion or our lifestyle on other people. What we wanted to do was create something that we thought people would love, because we love the taste and nostalgia of how Danea cooks and how we eat at home. And when we'd have people over, they'd feel the same way. So we thought, man, we know people would love this, but we have to find a way to put it in their hands that's comfortable and welcoming, inviting in a way that feels familiar to them. So that's why we don't use the word vegan. We started using the word plant-based before it became a thing, because we felt like that was a little more comfortable for people to understand. And we get it on a daily basis at the restaurant, where people will come in and either get up to the front and realize it's plant-based as they're ordering and continue with it, and then come back and say, that was amazing. Or what we also have had people come in, and it's clear and marked, it says 100% plant-based, but you're in a hurry, you might not see that.
I didn't see it, yeah.
They'll eat it, and they must have heard other people talking about it or seen the menu or something later, and they'll come back in and be like, I didn't know this was plant-based when I ordered it. That was the best burger I've ever had in my life,
Right.
And they'll have these reactions. We have some of them on video, which are actually pretty funny. That's probably one of the most gratifying things that we can do, because we wanted to create this transitional food for people that would really start to introduce them to the idea of eating plant-based. And our whole mission was to do that in a way that was comfortable. What we call like introducing it to people who are veg curious, or your flexitarians, or people that are testing diets, and then show them like, trust Burger Patch, like we got you. And then as a result of that, be able to even introduce some new things that might be even further out of their realm of comfort. But because we've created a trust with them, they're willing to try those things with us now. And we do that through our seasonal menu. So we've introduced, a pulled pork that's plant-based, a cheese steak that's plant-based. We have our chili right now, which has, plant-based ground beef type alternative in it. And all of those things are certainly much further away from what a transitional, diet would look like for people. But because I think we've developed some trust and comfort in the brand and made it easy for people to try it, they're trying all these other things and they love it.
So when you think about your food mission or the purpose of Burger Patch, or I don't know what the semantic you would use, or vision maybe. Yeah. So you're using this transitional, which makes sense, right? You're not promoting Burger Patch as the primary diet.
No. And it's fast food,
It's fast food.
You probably shouldn't eat it every day. Although I do. And I think I was going to do a calculation the other day. I was thinking about this. I was like, I wonder if I've eaten more Beyond Burgers than anybody else in the world. And I mean that because I literally eat it almost every day, and sometimes twice a day. Because I love it, and it's convenient, which are all
right there.
important things for us.
Well, I think when we were very first writing the business plan, the first thing that came up for us is, what are the values that Burger Patch is going to be rooted in? When you go to work for somebody else, you sort of plug into what the values that business has established. And we were starting this from the very beginning. And so it was, what's important to us? What do we want our customers to feel? How do we want our employees to feel? Burger Patch is going to be this amazing burger, fry, and shake joint, but we want it to be rooted in something more, that the community, we want the brand to stand for something that the community wants to stand behind. And so, we have our shirts that say "Be kind."
Yeah, I love them.
We want to be kind to each other, to the environment, to animals, to our community. But again, we don't want to preach about any of that. We just want
to be welcoming.
We want to be welcoming.
Everybody and everything. And I think the Be Kind is really where everything is rooted. I think for us, it grew out of, a love of animals and wanting to, prevent some of the things that we read about, and that was a big reason why we went plant-based to begin with, along with, as Danea mentioned, the diet. But it's grown into so much more, as we have hired our staff and gotten to know them and understand the backgrounds that they're from, and gotten to meet so many of our customers and see the surprisingly wide diversity of customers that we have. The idea of continuing to just have open arms and be welcoming to anybody and everybody of every walk of life and belief and whatever, like that's what it's all about for us, to just be a safe place to try new food, a safe place to, eat, a safe place to.
It's not
whatever.
pretentious. It's not preachy.
Yeah,
it's just you feel comfortable
and
there.
It's fun. Like it's a cool vibe. It's a fun environment.
It's usually packed every time I go over there.
Yeah. The staff were
they seem super
lucky.
happy.
They're happy.
Yeah.
And those are all the things that we're really trying to build the brand and culture and hopefully more restaurants around is that energy that really stems from just kindness, kindness to staff, kindness to customers, kindness to animals, kindness to what we put in our body ourselves.
Whoever did the visual branding did an awesome.
Yeah,
both of you.
Well, the logo, the bee,
is
is done by a local graphic designer. His name is Taras Garcia. He's awesome.
He did that's
went through
fantastic.
a lot of iterations, and a lot of text chains of showing it to people. What do you think? What about this color? And you nailed it when you got to the bee, and then adding that to some of the words like kind has just been a really fun addition for us.
Great. And you just opened a second location now?
It's coming soon.
It's
So
not
in
open yet?
Davis this spring, opening a restaurant is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We've done one, and I think we've learned a lot that should lend itself to an easier opening to the second one. Things that people never know that you have to go through behind the scenes. But
were you too successful that first? I came down.
I think so.
I came down here on the opening. And
it was. I mean, our pop-ups. We had a 4-hour line when we
1,000
opened
people
for
in a day.
Yeah.
So we'd experienced it.
But
it's if you're gonna have a problem, that's the
that is
better
the
one
problem
to have.
I think the thing leading up to that opening weekend, we prepped. We knew okay, this is going to be big, but we couldn't imagine how to then again open on Monday and Tuesday and with it
because the pop-ups were one day. It was like you do it, like you burn out at 2 in the morning and then you sleep the next day. You clean up 2 days later maybe.
Yeah, but this is Burger Patch, we're hand making all of our sauces, hand making our shake base. We have a special
the shakes are amazing.
way
that's Danea's recipe.
Way that we do the burgers and the seasoning and all of that. We open at 11 in the morning, but we have staff in there at 6 a.m. prepping for the day. And so
we press our own burgers. Like we have to press, thousands of burgers, in a day's time.
No
it takes time.
That was quite the learning process of we hired too few people initially in the beginning, and we got the hey, can you put an apron on right now? Get back.
Can you wash dishes? Great, come on in.
Yeah, so I think it's especially looking back now, it's a really fun time and fun memories and all of that. But hopefully, opening number 2.
Oh, we've gotten so much better and faster. The food has gotten better.
Exactly.
I'm so happy with the product, just the customer experience, just from a speed standpoint. Now,
I've noticed that.
Nobody should wait more than 7 minutes. They really shouldn't. So we're still seeing crowds at times like we had on our opening weekend. We're just a heck of a lot faster and smoother than what we did. So we're excited to open Davis and put that to the test again, kind of a big, opening month or weekend and see how we can really jam through that quickly and keep a high level of quality and experience.
You're more, as much as you try to prepare for the first one, you can only prepare for what you know. And
exactly.
Yeah. And we decided to sign ourselves up for the Bottle Rock Music Festival, which was 3 weeks after we opened.
Oh, really?
Which was basically having a second restaurant off site,
it's
where you're
massive
prepping
festival,
for that. And we had some long days and nights on end that, we look back, it was fun, but
I may have cried.
Yeah, I definitely cried. Yeah, that was part of my routine, I think.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah.
Well, amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's fun. We
fun.
love what we're building as a community and the response so far.
That's the neatest part, I think, for both of us, is to just walk in there and see our staff and the community gathered out front, all sharing a meal and smiles and positive energy. And that's
generally everybody
really
wants to
neat.
come back.
Yeah.
That's a good.
I think
good
so.
thing.
I mean, I've brought a lot of people here. Every time we come through Sacramento, we're coming by.
We appreciate that.
We brought a Simmer. This whole family flew out, and a few months ago from South Carolina.
Okay, cool.
And we all came over to eat here. It was late at night, getting off a flight. It was 11 p.m., which is great. I love that. One
Friday,
time
Saturday,
I came here at it was after midnight. I came to the Burger Patch, and it was plenty of people in there still.
That's right.
And everybody loved it. Her brother, we never even told him that it was plant-based. You know?
Yeah.
Awesome.
He loved it.
Cool.
Never even asked.
Cool.
Yep.
And yeah, and it's great. And you feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
You don't feel heavy.
That's right.
You know, and it's on so many levels, it's a cool thing.
Yeah, thank you.
know, the be kind thing I love, because I'm come from a background of yoga and Ayurvedic medicine,
Yeah.
and the Ayurvedic, which is the traditional Indian medicine.
Yeah. I dabbled in it a little.
Have you?
Yeah.
Well, they would say for sure that plant-based diet is going to nurture or encourage kindness of your own mind and your own heart, and that because of the energetic qualities of just what you're eating.
Yeah. One into your body. I mean, you're instead of putting something in there that's going to cause inflammation, right?
True.
You're generally adding things that are at least allowing you to heal or cycle through something a little more naturally. So
and you're not creating the part that I really like is you don't consciously think about it, which I think is part of the you don't know what you don't know until you know. But now when I look at my plate is in alignment with, if you asked me what my values are, they're in sync now. So I'm not creating conflict internally every time I eat.
Which we used to have before, right? I think towards the end of going, before we went vegetarian, we started to have that thought a lot more. You're starting to eat that chicken and you're like, you take the bite anyways, but you don't feel great about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, stops tasting as good.
It does, yeah. And it's so freeing once you finally make that transition and you get a little further away from it. Somebody posted about this the other day or something, but just feeling so not conflicted about, eating is so freeing.
Yeah, and it's really not that big of a deal. I think that's the big question, or things that I hear a lot. Which I don't talk to very many people about my diet. It's just like I don't talk to. May seem funny to people, but outside of teaching, I don't talk to many people about spirituality.
Unless they ask,
yeah, unless they ask, yeah. But it's often it feels like this mental leap on is it easy? Is it, how do you do it? What do you miss stuff? And I think it's like anything else. Transitions can be difficult.
Sure.
Yeah.
But then once you've
it's a new normal.
shifted, it's it's not a big deal whatsoever. I don't think about eating meat ever. And
Oh no.
I mean, occasionally I'll smell it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh, that smells good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember it. Yeah.
But if I would actually get to the point where considering to eat it, I'd be like, no
chance.
way.
Yeah, I've gotten very turned off by the sight of meat being cooked. And you're around it every once in a while, depending on somebody's barbecue or whatever it might be. You see it actually does kind of make my stomach turn a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because of everything that's associated with it.
Yeah. We haven't even mentioned climate.
Yeah.
Yeah, which has become a huge thing, and certainly wasn't something I think when we first set out doing this, a while ago, that was as top of mind as it is now. But it's certainly risen to the front of a lot of things we do. We were very purposeful about the packaging that we use, knowing that was also a version of the kindness that was important to us in terms of our environment and the earth. So we try the best we can to have as much biodegradable, compostable, recyclable materials. I think we're ahead of even what's possible at this point, meaning that we have some things that are compostable, but the facilities around us don't allow them to be composted yet. So the next phase for us is really trying to start working with the city, waste management, to really push the envelope on what we can do to reduce and reuse.
That's a great point. There's what we can do, then there's what do the systems allow.
Yeah, it's sort of frustrating. Like we spend extra money to have compostable plastic, for instance. Sacramento just isn't there yet in terms of being able to have the facilities to compost that plastic. There are a couple cities who are, and we hope that we can kind of keep pushing that and push other restaurants to join us in that effort, because the more people are doing it, sort of forces the issue a little bit. So instead of not spending the money and saying, well, it doesn't exist, we're not going to do it. No, we're going to do it and show we're trying, help us get there.
Yeah. It's a movement. That's what it is.
It's a lot of movements. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Like people say like, oh, you know, it's great that you guys caught the vegan trend. We're like, well, honestly, I've never even thought about it as a trend.
Right.
Like we've been doing this for a long time, and we were going to do this, you know, 3-4 years ago before it became a trend. So
right, a trend
that
implies that it comes
and then it's going to come back down.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the part that we just don't agree with. We feel like people are actually just becoming more conscious.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things we talk about a lot. What we provide is convenient consciousness. I think the convenient part is what was really missing. I think people have a desire and a will and a sort of innate nature to want to live consciously. But there are roadblocks to that, which make it hard. And the more you can remove those roadblocks and make it convenient for them to live a conscious lifestyle, the easier it will be for people to make that transition.
Yeah, I was in, again, South Carolina visiting my family over the holidays and went golfing with my dad. And then afterwards, like, their buddies are there. Yeah, and, you know, we're in a country club, you know, there's no vegetarian burgers there. But, I mean, popcorn or something.
Sure.
And one of... and it was right before the New Year, so New Year's resolutions. And then there's, you know, and all beautiful people. This is not like some like superiority complex, but I'm just cultural differences and lifestyle differences. Yeah. And one gentleman, he's, I would never expected this, you know, and I say South Carolina because that's, you know, it's kind of the polarity of California.
It certainly is, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my New Year's resolution is I'm going to go do plant-based.
All right.
And I think just the semantic plant-based is, it's not vegetarian.
Yeah.
It's just like plant-based. There's
no stigma against that.
Feels better, sounds, plants.
Sure.
Yeah. Cool.
I love hearing that.
Me too.
And when we're seeing it, you know, you see all these celebrities and things like that making that transition now. And it's just great. Like, please, you know, there's no bandwagon. There's no like, oh, we were here first. Like, it's wide open. Come on. Like, the more people that join, the closer we get to matching these things that are really important for us from a value standpoint around being kind.
I think that's what we found too, is by not shouting about it, by not saying, hey, we're vegan and you should be too, or anybody, it allows curiosity to drive people there on their own. And I think that, you know, the times that we've been out at restaurants and just ordered the way that we ordered, or, you know, pulled the waiter aside and asked to have something modified, it invites curiosity without sort of having to bring it up. And I think that allows an opening for people to reassess or to think about, maybe I could try this, or, you know, and I think that it's been really exciting, the times that you do get surprised by the people that are watching or are curious, that you all of a sudden go, oh, wow, now they're wanting to know what products I'm buying at the grocery store. Like, I would never have expected. Yeah, exactly. Is that they just start asking questions that I wouldn't have expected this person to ask. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's that transition, right? Which is what we'd hoped to be. Instead of thinking like, okay, I gotta go clear out my fridge, and to become plant-based, I gotta just, you know, start everything over, which is overwhelming. It's like, no, come on down and start with a burger.
Yeah, right.
You know, do this for a couple weeks.
Do you have a vision? Maybe last question. Do you have a vision for Burger Patch and the brand? Like how big you're trying to go?
We talk about it a lot. Here's where I think I'm at, and you can weigh in and agree or disagree. I lived a lifestyle in my previous career that was all about like keeping up and being first and the best, and it got us to a really great place. It's exhausting.
Yeah,
it's exhausting, and sometimes you lose sight of the things that are most important to you when you do that. So I think where I find myself and the brand right now is in a place that we want to grow responsibly, and as the demand kind of allows us to grow. I personally don't have a need to be the biggest plant-based fast food chain in the world. If that happens, wonderful. But I don't want to push that and sacrifice the quality of the product or the quality of the experience or the quality of staff in exchange for the speed of being first.
Perhaps the quality of life.
And quality of life was probably the more important thing for us, because I think if we lose sight of that and we lose sight of the thing that I think is grounding this brand, which is that quality of life and reflection and honoring those values, then I think the brand will suffer at some point too. So I don't want to find us in a place where anxiety starts to take over, stress starts to take over, and we start to do things to respond to that anxiety and stress that are maybe not good for the brand, or take it in a place that we didn't originally intend it. And those are just things that I think I've learned as I've gotten older and been through some really stressful situations and careers. So we're confident we'll grow. I mean, that's why we're opening Davis in a few months. I'm looking at new locations every day. We get inquiries every day from around the country or the world from people who want to open a burger patch or something, which is great. I don't have a vision right now where I want to have one open in New York that I can't stay close to it and make sure that the brand represents what we really want it to represent. So I think in the short term, we'll continue to have it close enough where we can have that oversight. We'll take it a day at a time and kind of see what happens. But we love that people are enjoying it, and to the extent that they want it, we'll keep delivering it.
Yeah, I think this is a good lesson. I mean, I ditto to all of that. You're right on. We've hit a point in our lives where we've learned that balance and personal life, that there's a place for both of those things. And outside of, the opportunity is certainly there. As Philip said, he gets inquiries all the time for people that want to franchise Burger Patch. But I think that, that first question we had is, what are the values that Burger Patch stands for, is staying committed to those and staying committed to the values that we have as a family of, what are the things that are important to us in our lives, and how can we balance that with Burger Patch. Outside of all of that, you also kind of learn to ride the sort of wave of life and the way that things go. And I think that things will unfold the way that they're supposed to unfold if we keep our values at the forefront and stay committed to those. Then then it's just about allowing things to unfold as they're supposed to.
Yeah, that balance between not being overly stressed out,
right?
Yeah.
But
have a clear head.
Have a clear head. Have a balanced family life, and then also sensing this duty may not be the right word. Purpose, feeling of I can't not do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what are those things that,
right,
like you said earlier, or what you said about Phil earlier, is like willing to do even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think that's what are the things in life that I'm willing to do even when I don't want to. Like currently I'm on my way to the airport. I do not want to, but I need to.
Yeah.
I don't need to because of a personal ego need. I need to because some other thing that I don't actually fully understand.
Got it.
Yeah.
And, well, thanks for sharing their story.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to hear it and not only enjoy the story and, in regards to the specifics of what you're doing, but even me listening to it, it gives like insight into, you hear someone else's story, it reveals certain things in your own. Yeah. And it's inspiring. Yeah, you both are beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah,
well, hopefully it's the beginning of a new story for us too. So.
Absolutely.
Sure sounds like it. So we'll get the update.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
We'll check in every so often. Yeah.
Cool.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you all so much for listening to the podcast. Really appreciate it. If you haven't already, if you would please, if you're enjoying what you're hearing, leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe. Thank you so much. That helps get the word out. Thank you again to the Life Force Academy. Start your 14-day trial for just $1. Check it out. Go to lifeforce.yoga, lifeforce.yoga, Life Force Academy, home Kundalini yoga experience. And then also, once again, thank you to Simrit, the whole Simrit band, the new live album, live in Los Angeles. It was just recorded a few months ago. I was there that night at that show, one of the highlights of my year in 2019, and now we have the recording. You're hearing it right now. It's psychedelic. It's deep, it's meditative. It'll have you up dancing at times, or maybe the whole time, whatever your vibe is, however you enjoy it. listen to it from beginning to end. I say that for most albums in general, but for this one, I think it's a must. And then also, like, good sound system. Make sure you're on a sound system with good low end too. Turn the volume up. Go on a journey. It'll take you. The experience is incredible. Go wherever you get your music. Apple Music, Spotify, Simrit, SIMRIT. Live in Los Angeles, the new album. Thanks so much, everyone. Lots of love to you all out there. Hope you're doing well. Got lots of cool episodes coming up soon. We did several episodes recorded at the Envision Festival in Costa Rica, also right before the whole pandemic happened. And so I'm excited to get those out to you. Those are 4 in that series, all really amazing people. Lots of love, everyone. Simrit Live.
Look